Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the second Disinfection 360 webinar. I'd like to welcome all delegates and our distinguished speakers. I'm happy to report to you that we have 160 delegates from 24 countries around the globe. As we probably know, the pandemic has been gaining a lot of momentum in terms of knowledge sharing, and that knowledge, while knowledge is evolving. So we're hoping today that we will continue our conversation to bring about possibly recommendations and some idea sharing to to share between one another. We have a great number of speakers whom I'll be introducing later on during the presentation and prior to the panel discussion. So I don't know if you can see my screen right now, Alka?
Not yet, Dr. Iyad.
Okay. How about now?
Not yet.
Can you see the screen now?
No.
Okay. Now?
Let me try sharing it. Do you want me to share it from my end?
Try, please.
Let me give it a shot. Are you able to see the screen, Dr. Iyad?
Yes. Okay. So we can go to the next slide, please. Excellent. So we have great speakers today, and as I said, I'll be introducing them post my presentation and prior to the panel discussion. Next slide, please. So the webinar today will be looking at various number of topics between filtration, ventilation, disinfection of ducts, coils, different aspects of the Edgevac system, not to mention entry points and exit points. So we're hoping that we'll try to cover as much as we could in the next couple of hours these topics. Frankly, I think we have enough content here that we can go on for the whole day, but we'll try to cover as much as possible. And as I said, with the number of great speakers we have, I'm sure we will have a lot of ideas and school of thoughts shared. Next slide, please. Basically, we're looking at different aspects here. We're looking at occupant safety and well-being. We're trying to incorporate building pre-entry and post-entry disinfection, and looking at cleaning strategies and solution. Special attention we're going to be looking at. Coils, ducts, air filters, heat recovery wheels, and other building essentials. I already tried to share some images so that we start to develop what sort of cleaning we need to do and what sort of disinfection we need to do. And we're going to be talking about these images briefly as we go along. Next slide, please. So when we talk about air quality, our mind already hovers around particles. Particulate matter seems to be the first thing that comes to mind. Yes, particles occur in the atmosphere in a wide variety of sizes. We all understand that we inhale 17,000 liters per day. So that's significant because at a very low concentration of airborne contaminants, that represent a large quantity of them to be inhaled by a human body. Daily, there are billions of particles inhaled within the ambient air by every human being. And many of these particles deposit on the respiratory tract, and the deposition depends on particle size, density, shape, charge, and surface. Not to mention the breathing pattern of every individual. Interestingly, it's from a toxic point of view, all particles smaller than PM10 have the potential of being biologically active in vulnerable individuals. So this is also interesting to have. I'm also attaching for you a very interesting reading that you can refer as far as this topic is concerned. Next slide, please. So first thing comes to mind when we start talking about recommendations and strategies to confront or combat COVID-19 is ventilation. And the first question that comes to my mind is, how fresh outdoor air is, because we need to distinguish between fresh air and outdoor air. If it's contaminant, then it's no longer fresh. So what could be in outside air or outdoor air? Car emissions, fossil fuel combustion emission, chemicals and different emissions from factories, PM, dust and other particles, pollen and mold spores. And these pollutants are basically filling up the atmosphere around the clock. So before we just jump to the conclusion of just increasing ventilation, we need to think of possibly controlling ventilation through how much fresh air we're bringing, how much humidity we're increasing, and how fresh the outdoor air is. Next slide, please. And as you probably see, there are different contaminants, pollen, cement, spores, dust, even skin and hair can be all airborne. As I said earlier, and I'm sure you agree, knowledge is still evolving. We're really bombarded every day with a lot of reading about moisture control building, how important air filtration in buildings, how well-ventilated buildings have a much better performance in terms of employees, clean and fresh air, how much we really need, and what are the quantities we need to bring into the indoor space, how Edgevac can help in preventing the spread of COVID-19. It's a lot of information. And I think what we aim for is basically open the book of recommendations and take chapter 1 or page 1 fairly quickly. Next slide, please. So this can be challenging. It's not always a straightforward sort of decision, because sometimes we hear conflicting stories, whether air conditioning is helping in spreading or whether air conditioning is preventing. And if it's going to prevent, what are the precautions and the measures that we have to do? We also hear on the other school of thought, or possible early research that says whether we disinfect or we don't, it maybe have no effect on the spread of COVID-19. So what to believe? Frankly, my point of view would be assume it all. Assume it goes through the air conditioning. Assume the air conditioning system can, or the HVAC system can transmit it. And based on that assumption, take all precautions, whether the preventive one or past that, and do what it takes to do a proper maintenance, replace filters, exercise, controlled ventilation. And if we find out in 6 months' time that it's not spread through the air conditioning system, we've already done our homework in terms of maintenance. Next slide, please. So I just want to, get the conversation going for our panel discussion. But, as you can see, these are just living testimonies of a poor filtration or frankly, no filtration at all, which basically shifts the emphasis from, reinforcing filtration or ensuring that your filtration is doing a proper job, to basically more emphasis shifted on coil washing, duct cleaning, and that will have its own set of rules, which we will probably go through today. Next slide, please. Again, there are so many challenges with our HVAC systems. One of them is filtration. When filtration fails, you can probably see the heating and cooling coil, and you can see the coil now is participating in the filtration action, and you can see the dust layer, the dust cake layer is now forming on the coil rather than the filter, and we have to seek coil washing, and then again you can see a microscopic picture on the right, where we have not really, even if we wash or clean, we still have not gotten rid of the water and the dust. So even that has its own set of rules to follow. On the other left corner, you can see water accumulation in air handling units. And this basically gives a red flag to drainage and leveling, etc. The picture you see, wet pocket filter, you can see the inappropriate installation of pocket filters. And this also needs to be given attention in terms of installation. Next slide, please. Again, fan coil units are very interesting because I'm sure we at one point, we inhale air as a final product from them, whether it's in the office or possibly at home or in a restaurant. And you can see on the left, in the absence of poor filtration or a very low grade filtration, this is what we have. And eventually we demand a better indoor air quality. And I strongly believe this is very difficult to have when you have a coil of that nature. Next slide, please. Again, let's move a little bit into air filters. You probably see, whether it's pocket filters failing or disposable fine filters even being washed or deformed, or metallic filters corroded in action, or even washing HEPA filters with water. All these practices will not get us any better, or will not provide any enhanced indoor air quality. And therefore, it would be very difficult, in my point of view, to be able to confront COVID-19 with practices of that nature. So I'm calling upon all of us to revisit our maintenance practices and selection. For example, if you look at the second picture from the left, this is a picture I've taken out of a unit where it has 6 mm depth filter, where I can see my hand from the other side. So again, we need to question what sort of filtration we're bringing to bear. Next slide, please. Again, deformation of pockets, as you can see. We need not also to keep the fan section clean, which is very important. And we need to accept that this is part of HVAC system and it needs to be part of the planning. Next slide, please. So air diffusers, basically the final destination prior to reaching our respiratory system. And you can see the diffuser on the top right corner. And if you flip that, you'll see the amount of dust settling in. And I'm sure if we take a sample of that dust and size it, and we see the size distribution, it's probably something that we can capture by a modest or, 35, 45% efficiency, a G4 or a G3 sort of filtration. So um, this visible dust can be taken care of or captured by a lower grade filtration. But eventually you have another image, which is unfortunately I've taken out of a healthcare facility, and you can see a lot of dust accumulation settling on the diffuser. So we need to again rethink of all the segments, and again maintenance need to involve disinfection techniques and strategies in all these segments. Next slide, please. Again, these are another examples of diffuser with dust loaded on them. Ducts will also experience some of the contaminants that we fail to capture by filtration in the absence of filtration or in the absence of appropriate air filtration selection. And you can see here a close-up of dust or contaminant settlement. And definitely that could be a media to foster many microorganism growth or bioaerosols. And then again, our Edgevac system and strategies, whether it's disinfection or filtration or ventilation, cannot just be made for COVID-19. And we'll talk about this a bit later because it's not going to be the last outbreak we get, and our system should have a comprehensive approach to take care of various contaminants of different nature. Next slide, please. So the equation is simple, and this is something that I've experienced myself. This is a fan coil unit that uses a metallic filter, and you can see how your coil would look like, and eventually what is your diffuser is going to look like. Now, what I've done for this fan coil unit is I did some replacements. I increased the efficiency as much as I could within the available or the allowable pressure drop within the unit. So within a 45% efficiency layer of filtration, we are able to get the coil to be cleaner and the diffuser to be definitely a lot cleaner than what you see on the top. What is interesting to notice here is basically the contaminants that settled on the top, on the diffuser, are now settling on the filter. So let's think preventive, and interestingly enough, even the color is the same, so it's probably a living testimony that we need to decide where do we like our contaminants to settle. Is it on the filters, which is at the source of filtration, or we need to travel all around? Then we have to involve a lot of other maintenance practices involving cleaning, disinfecting, and washing. Next slide, please. So there are several schools of thoughts. We're talking about recirculation. It's a conservative approach. We're talking about ventilation as well. We're talking about fresh air. I struggle a little bit with fresh air because outside air, it's not fresh all the time. So we need to come up with a concrete definition of fresh air and think about, when outdoor is qualified to be fresh air and how fresh is fresh. We can facilitate and employ air quality monitoring devices that are commercially available, so it's no struggle to get them there. I believe physical and chemical characterization of both atmospheric and indoor contaminants are of a paramount importance, because eventually they will suggest or propose and the essential filtration we bring to bear. We also need to implement appropriate and effective air filtration systems. It's a key element. We need to have a strategy. We need to have a filtration plan. We need to think of what is the air quality we need, and is it the best possible air quality we can get. my major advice would be do not allow your filter efficiency and indoor air quality to degrade and then take action about it. I think we have to really think preventive, inappropriate filter selection, inappropriate installation and implementation of filters defeat the intended purpose of having filters in the first place. Also personal hygiene, we can do all the recommendations that are available worldwide. All of them, combined are executed, but yet we still need to look at personal hygiene. We take our phone everywhere. I'm sure we take it to the washroom. We take it, I think we need to think of personal hygiene because we cannot blame everything on our Edgevac system. We have other sort of conduct that we need to revisit. Also today, what I'd like our panel to discuss is possibly free return versus ducted return. Very interesting topic. We see whether it's feasible or not. Next slide, please. But I hope, now we've sort of brought up a lot of topics that we need to address. Personally, and I'm not seeking really agreement with anyone, but this is what I want to share with you personally, but I will be more than happy to hear everybody's input about it. I believe we have what it takes, technologically speaking, to confront COVID-19. The desire to get things right is there. We just need to get the planners, the designers, and the consultants on the same table, and eventually the contractors to execute what we agree upon when we have that first meeting pre-design. I've been in this air quality field since '98, and I've heard a lot of better indoor air quality or better air quality. Let's first agree on what do we mean by quality before we really go into enhanced air quality, because this is a very interesting topic to be had. My third thought that I would like to leave with you today is we should focus on doing what we can, doing the right thing versus what is economical, what is practical, what is reasonable. Every time a new idea is suggested to take air quality or our HVAC system to the next level or filtration, the question is, it's too expensive. It's not practical. It hasn't been done before. I think we're past that time. I think we're ready, willing, and capable to take air quality to the next level. I want to end with what Dr. Sheikh has said. Human choices are driving us to witness more outbreaks. Urbanization is on the rise, where invading forests to urbanize, and this is getting basically getting humans to be in touch with nature and disease and microorganisms that we've never been in touch with before. So I think it's a very good time now to redo the math of different aspects of our of the way we live. Basically, I believe what we're witnessing today is a manifestation of the way we've been living in the past 100 years or so. Next slide, please. So I want to end at this point, and I want to use the remaining time to introduce our great panelists who will be joining me in a minute. And I'd like to introduce Engineer Hanan Ahmed. Engineer Hanan is a chemical engineer with a master's degree in hospital waste management, gaining her bachelor's degree from the University of Kuwait and her postgraduate degree from University of Al Ain, graduating with a distinction both times. She has over 21 experience in engineering and maintenance services department. Also would like to introduce Mr. Mohammed Zakaria. He's the Chief Consultant of Pretty Cooling Division of Sohami Design. Zakaria is a specialist of HVAC, utility systems, control systems, and commissioning process. I also like to introduce Mr. Azmi Abul Huda. He's a managing director of Emergy, a privately held corporation specialized in built environment field with a focus on sustainability, energy saving solutions, audits, surveys, building performance, and indoor environmental quality. Also, I'd like to bring on board Mr. Ahmed Al-Kiki. Mr. Al-Kiki is the Director of Technical Services at RAC Hospitality. He is a results-oriented individual with proven track record on hospital technical service and projects with over 17 projects between opening, renovations, and rebranding. Also would like to bring Mr. Ambu. Mr. Ambu is a managing director of ProLead Engineering Consultants. He's a mechanical engineer with over 30 years of experience and 25 years in the Middle East. I'd like to bring Mr. Dominic McPollen. Dominic is a central planning at the Ministry of Works in Bahrain. Dominic is the chartered town planner with 2 degrees in city planning, specializing in infrastructure. He's also the chartered planning and development surveyor, holding a postgraduate professional entry exam of the Royal Institute of Chartered Surveyors. I'd also like to bring Mr. or Engineer Muhammad Shafiq Ar-Rahman. Engineer Shafiq is presently working as a senior Edgevac engineer at Kuwait International Airport T2. He has extensive hands-on experience as contractors for 8 years and has been supervising and designing for 23 years, ranging from healthcare, commercial buildings, airports, etc. I also would like to bring Mr. or Engineer Imran Sheikh. Engineer Sheikh is the Vice Chair of the CIBSE Committee. He's a Chartered Mechanical Engineer and Fellow engineer working at SSH International Consultant with over 11 years of experience in the field of MAB design, sustainability, project execution, and management. Gentlemen, ladies and gentlemen, welcome and good morning. Can everyone hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Yes.
Excellent.
Yeah.
That's okay.
So we'll start with the questions. I just want to invite the delegates. If you have any questions, please post it on the board, and we'll be taking questions as we go along. I'd like to bring Engineer Shafiq Ar-Rahman as a starter. Engineer Shafiq, can you hear me? Okay. Let me then bring Engineer Hanan. Engineer Hanan, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear.
Good morning.
Good morning too.
Excellent. Engineer Hanan, what is your prospect on disinfection as far as hospitals are concerned? There's one side of the equation that says, if we go preventive, maybe we don't have to disinfect, maybe, we can get everything right at the beginning. And the other side of the equation says, well, we haven't done our proper homework for the past 60, 70 years. Contaminants are all over our coil, ducts, diffusers. How do we convince the audience, the public, that disinfection is important?
Thank you. Good morning first, and thank you for inviting me for this beneficial discussion for you and for us. And actually in the hospital, you cannot not to prevent. First, we have to take all our precaution before and after. And before the epidemic started, before COVID, we have a system to take action for the prevention of any diseases. For example, we have to clean our coils, our system semi-annually, clean our ducts semi-annually, water treatment semi-annually. So we have certain measures to prevent diseases. But after this pandemic came, COVID, we have to do more precaution, more disinfection to prevent also our staff, not to prevent patient. Patient already, they have COVID. We have to prevent our front line, which are the doctors and nurses, our workers, water, everybody, and our admin staff as well, because they will they live in this scary environment. So we have to let them really be patient with the situation that we have. So we did more things to prevent this. For example, before we are having only the critical care department, which is OT, ICU, SCIBO, neonatal section. We are giving them fresh air. But after the COVID-19 started, before receiving any patient, we transfer all our wards to negative pressure, which means that we are not allowing any return air to come back to the hospital. We isolate all the department and we make the non-return air. All the air go outside with the pre-filter, HEPA filter, and UV light to prevent returning all this infected air. So we have to do both. From the beginning, we have to be aware what we are facing. And before even the WHO, they are telling us that it is not transmitting this COVID, it is not transmitting by air. But even though it is, they are telling that it is big droplet from the beginning, and it will all fall on the floor. So we have to disinfect whatever we are using, either Vercon or Clorox or Cidex. We have to clean the area around the patient well. But from the beginning, we take this action, and alhamdulillah, we prove that we are right. Even though it is very costly, it is affecting our temperature and our humidity, and we are to solve this problem again, because at summer, without return air, I am facing increasing in the wards, but still I feel that the action have been taken, it is the right action.
Excellent. Let me move to Mr. Imran Sheikh. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Good morning and welcome aboard. Let me ask you, with your vast experience of MEP design and sustainability, what would you suggest today? I think the public is a little bit confused. On one hand, they say increase ventilation. On the other hand, they say, no, it's not really ventilation, but you should reinforce ventilation. It's really a little bit of the maintenance. What is it that you can tell the public today that can enhance our position in confronting COVID-19?
Okay, firstly, thank you very much for having me on this prestigious conference. Yes, there's always a confusion, and there is an aspect where the client and everyone also comes into the picture. So now, given the current scenario with COVID-19, it is always better, and in general as well, to have good amount of fresh air into the space, which exceeds the CPI or Ashworth standards, or even exceeds further, because if you look at to minimize the risk of airborne transmissions of anything like SARS-CoV-2, the general advice is to increase the air supply and the exhaust ventilation. Basically, supply as much outside air as reasonably possible. The underlying principle is to dilute and remove the airborne pathogens as much as possible, and exhaust them to the outside air, and reduce the chance they can become deposited on surfaces as inhaled by room users. So so it reduces the room occupants' risk of catching illness in a poorly ventilated room than in a well ventilated room. So it's always better to have fresh air into the space and increase it as much as possible practically without affecting the energy efficiency side of it.
Thank you. Can I move into Mr. Ahmed Al-Kiki? Can you hear me? Good morning.
Good morning. Yes, I can hear you indeed.
Excellent. And now, with your experience in terms of hospitality and this, the sort of high occupancy facilities like shopping malls, I think everybody is sort of, think of visiting places like this. What do you think is the real concern when we visit a shopping mall or a hotel or any sort of facilities that have been shut down for 6 or 4 months? What is the first thing that you recommend first, the facility owners to do, and second, the occupants to exercise when they visit?
So first of all, thank you very much for your presentation. I loved it. And I would like to say that the photos that you have presented in your presentation, it might seem to be uncommon. You would be surprised how common it is in UAE. The first thing that owners should be doing whenever they reopen a hotel is disinfecting surfaces. And there are several methods that are now available in the market. And I can tell you now, there's a hype of introducing gates, disinfection gates, which basically spraying people with chemicals, and thermal cameras to test people's temperature. However, if you test someone with temperature and they are not symptomatic and they just enter your building, you have the virus in your building. If the person is going inside your building with a mask and you're spraying his body with chemicals, the virus is in his respiratory system. Spraying his skin with chemical will not really help you because he's going to be inside your building. So what needs to be done is disinfecting the building. Now there are several methods, and I happen to, before in my previous life, I did work in designing ozone generators, and I know how effective they are in terms of disinfection, and they have some side effects that need to be considered as well. However, there are several methods. The issue here is there is a lot of commercial stuff that are available in the market. There's a lot of companies that are producing or introducing to the owners municipality approved chemicals, but they don't say what are they approved for. They are approved for business to business. They're not approved to be sprayed on people. They're not approved for certain applications. So the approval that they present, it's not showing what is the application that should be used. As a guest going into the hotel, you need to have, the hotels in particular have implemented standards to inform guests if the table that they're going to or the room that they are going to has been disinfected or not, which should be sufficient for guests to utilize it. It's a matter of the hotel operator itself understanding the usage and the application of whatever chemicals that they are using to do the disinfection properly for each room or each table.
Thank you, Mr. Ahmed. Let me move into Mr. Azmi Abul Huda. Can you hear me?
Yeah, yes, I can hear you.
Good morning. Good morning. Welcome aboard. Every time a new strategy is proposed, whether it's increasing ventilation, filtration, upgrading the Edgevac system, people say, watch your wallet. Energy is going to spike. I'm going to be paying more. My profits are too thin. From your perspective and experience, what can you propose, or what sort of feedback you can give people in terms of how smart new technologies have become, that they are not as energy, and what other parameters we should be looking at while thinking of enhancing and upgrading and retrofitting?
Thank you. Good morning, all, and thank you for having me here. First of all, I would like to suggest to work with what we have in our building. You said a very it is a very good question to say that, people will look on their wallets. So let's start with what we have, and let's work with what we have. And we already have buildings which are equipped with the basics, let's say, that we can work with. If we really utilize these basics or what we have in a building properly, then we are moving one step ahead. Then the next step should be implementing extra measures that will enhance our situation. However, I don't suggest really to go ahead and start implementing and spending money on extra measures while our components and systems, what we have in the building, are not really yet utilized properly in the direction of having proper air quality, fighting COVID-19, the spread of COVID-19. So this is in the first place, and measures like increasing ventilation, or these are measures that are good. However, as you said, there is really high expenditure on this, and we need to think about the priorities, having like high ventilation while allowing mixing of air within a space and transmission of viruses within the space before even being extracted outside. So this is my short answer to your question.
Thank you. Let me bring in Mr. Ambu. Ambu, good morning. Ambu, can you hear me?
Good morning, Dr.
Good morning.
Yes,
see you again. You've heard the several important and critical points Mr. Azmi has mentioned, and I quote, work with what we have. We have not been utilizing things appropriately. There really so much packed in these comments. Have we really played by the book? Have we really implemented what the standards have mentioned? And do we have a professional employment of every single aspect of the Edgevac system and maintenance? And if we have not, how can we go back and blame such standards for not serving us? So from your point of view, where have we gone wrong?
Okay. I absolutely agree with Azmi in saying that use what we have. And also, Dr. Riyad, your presentations, you have shown how filters are not being maintained, or even which affects subsequently the coils, and then the dust comes up to the terminals. So that means that there is something wrong. If you look at, as a designer, I'm, with what municipality has in terms of whether it's for a building permit, commencing with that. So we have all the systems in place, whether it's pressure handling units or exhaust systems, or the pressure balancing, air balancing between the positive negative pressure, whether it's a commercial building or whether it is a residential building. And of course, when it comes to critical applications like hospitals, it's a totally different approval process. And hospitality industry. If you go and see what is installed as part of the design, you have everything, whether it's a fresh air, which is in line with ASHRAE 62.1. I even go back to the pre-COVID days, because all these systems were in place, filtration or the treatment, energy recovery, which is what, all these are there in the buildings. But whether the facilities managers, do they have the knowledge, or when they are being given a building, what is the purpose of the facilities management? This is where the disconnect comes, because they do not know what is the impact, what they do to the to the building indoor air quality. Most of the times, the fresh air is either switched off in terms of energy savings, or what they've done is that we can see in one of the very, very prestigious buildings, which we have recently seen, the fresh air supply temperature has been kept at 24, 25 degrees centigrade, because they are trying to save energy. So what they are doing is that they are bringing in moisture into the building, and they are, it's going to be remaining in the building forever. unless it is again treated and brought back to the to the design condition, which is supposed to be around 15 to 16 degrees centigrade. So what the facilities managers, they do not have any liability towards either authorities or in terms of the owner's requirements, because the owners, they from a HVAC system, what they expect is the temperature, which is the room condition. Primarily, this is what the facilities managers think. If the owner is given a 24 degrees or 22 degrees centigrade, there ends their responsibility, and they do not bother to check the from fresh air whether it is being given the way it was meant. So this is not only in residential buildings. I'm talking about, we have seen commercial buildings, shopping malls. What is compromised is, from an energy perspective, most of these are just thrown behind, and people do not want to just look at it. So primarily, the main thing what needs to be done is have preventive maintenance, a system. Maybe in this part of the world, in Dubai, I can say, unless there is a government directive or an authority regulation or a check, people do not follow, because they do not feel that they are accountable. They are responsible for the buildings, the indoor air quality related things. So maybe in the near future, but as of now, even today, there is no clear direction from municipality for implementing any of the HVAC related system implementations. So in my opinion, the maintenance and the projects and buildings which have been designed, they are not being maintained. That there should be some kind of a regulation. That's the only way you can bring in a change. That's my opinion.
Thank you, Ambu. Let me bring in Mrs. Zakaria on board. Mrs. Zakaria, good morning.
Morning.
You've heard what Mr. Azmi has said. You've heard what Mr. Ambu has said. Management got a role to play. Government got a role to play. We haven't really been utilizing what we've got. Where do you come out on these topics?
First of all, good morning, and thanks for having me in this webinar. I'm in agreement with the statements made by both Azmi and Anbalagan. There is one important aspect I think is missing in most of the projects, and that aspect is called the implementation of commissioning process. The commissioning process is a quality assurance process to ensure that whatever is being implemented, whatever is being constructed, whatever is being designed, they are properly executed at site and properly commissioned and properly put in operation, and properly it is kept in operation continuously. So this process, commissioning process, has a role in the pre-design stage, in the design stage, in the project handover stage, the facility management taking over the project, implementation of proper training to the facility management team, and also an ongoing implementation of commissioning process to ensure that all the equipments and systems, subsystems are up and running up to their optimal. So whatever I said is a very ideal situation if everything goes right. But practically, most of these requirements are not properly fulfilled. So there is a lack of expertise in construction side, lack of expertise also in the facility management side, that renders even the existing system, which has capability to operate and provide benefits in a lot of the requirements, but they are not really operated well and maintained well. One of the classical examples would be control systems, for example. There are high quality control systems executed and implemented in projects, but then when you go and inspect a building, you would see most of the operation is bypassed and operating on manual mode and all these things. So basically, if we make all what we have up and running in good operating condition, we will be much better off than what we are currently. That's what basically I have to say.
Thank you. Let me move into Engineer Shafiq. Engineer Shafiq, good morning.
Good morning to you.
Engineer Shafiq, you've heard what the exchange between myself and Mr. Ahmed Al-Kiki about air quality and measures for hotels. You're working in one of possibly the region iconic airports, and we all now strive to use airports. We all miss traveling. From your point of view, as far as airports or high occupancy facilities, how different things should be executed there? How would you compare it to other sorts of facilities like a university or a hospital or even worship places where you have basically 5 times a day it's fully booked and then it's zero occupancy? How are airports looked at differently? How is ventilation done? How is filtration is executed and selected? You know, a lot of people are asking, is it particulate filtration only? How many stages of filtration? Do you look at bioaerosol? Do you look at gases contaminants? There are a lot of gases contaminants, NOx, SOx emission. You know, where do you come out on all this, and what can you provide us with?
Thank you very much. Let me, you know, when we were young, we were taught cleanliness is next to godliness. And there's a prophetic saying which says cleanliness and hygiene is half your faith. Now, this has been proved very much correct in the present day situation of the COVID-19. What I can see with my experience on different projects is, we design in a very good manner, following all the regulations and guidelines laid by the relevant authorities, ASHRAE, CPI, and whatever. After we do the installation, as our team members have told, that the operation and maintenance has been neglected in a very, very bad manner. Like as the slides what you have shown, the filters are not properly maintained. The filters are not replaced, rather they are clean and put back into place. The duct which is inside, which should be cleaned at the time of installation and closed, you know, by whatever methods you have with the polythene sheet and whatever. And by, you know, yearly, you know, at least after 6 months or 1 year, you have to clean the duct from inside, and you know, have to maintain the cleanliness inside. And you know what happens is, most of the people neglect these basic aspects. And as Mr. Zakaria told, we have the best building management systems, but they are bypassed, and we are not getting the required design intent, and the operating, you know, rules are being flouted, and that's why we do not have the indoor air quality. Not only the indoor air quality, whatever chemicals you use, whatever disinfectant you use, if the system is being recirculated with contaminated air with pollutants, you end up nowhere. So my this one is, first of all, as a consultant, as a supervision consultant, as a design consultant, we should select the filters in a proper manner and in a good this one, that you know, we get the utmost out of the filters. And second thing is, we have to have a maintenance schedule wherein we have to see that the filter is being used properly, and we have to replace the filters, not clean and put it back again. What most of the clients do in order to save the cost is they overlook this particular aspect. So this is actually increasing the after effects, you know, like people get cross-contaminated, cross-polluted. This is what is happening in most of the projects. As designers, we design to the best of our abilities and following all the guidelines. But if it is not implemented after the installation, if it is not properly operated or properly maintained, then whatever we have done is lost.
Thank you. I'm getting a flow of questions And now I'd like to ask Engineer Hanan, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear it.
Engineer Hanan, the first question goes to you from Saeed Al-Shamsi. He's asking you, what testing methods are requested to ensure that disinfectant solution that has been installed in building Edgevac system actually does reduce the level of harm microbes? Engineer Hanan?
Yeah. Plus that we are doing the disinfection for semi-annually on annual basis. We are doing swabbing testing. After we are doing this method before and after testing, we have to take sample from several area of the duct, and we have to examine this, and we will do it after the cleaning. So we will have somehow be a clear picture of how clean our duct.
Excellent. Now we have a question for all the panels, for all the panelists. I'm going to ask the question, and please, everyone, just 20 seconds. I'll start with Mr. Azmi. The question is, what are the panel opinion on using ozone and UV light for air purification? What are the pros and cons of using such a method? Mr. Azmi, you go first.
UV can be recommended. I mean, to be used at the higher levels of a space or in ducts. Mainly, we need to avoid having direct contact between the UV and the people who are in the space, the occupants, because it will have harmful effects on people. But it is recommended, I mean, for disinfection if installed properly and in the right locations.
Thank you. Mr. Ahmed Al-Kiki, what do you think?
I'll probably take a bit more than 20 seconds to answer this question. So the ozone is the most powerful oxidizing biocide in the world that can be dealt with. There is another disinfectant that is more powerful, which is formaldehyde, but it's very poisonous. However, with ozone, if the concentration of ozone is more than 0.02 ppm, and the human is subject to inhaling the ozone for 8 hours or more, it can damage the respiratory system of humans. So as long as it's used within range, it's very safe to be used. There is another side effect to ozone, that because it's a very powerful biocide, it will corrode any metals on the way except Teflon, stainless steel 316, aluminum, and glass, and copper. But everything else can be corroded. For UV, there are two types of UV, because there are two types of generating ozone on Earth, actually, not in the atmosphere. The first one is using coronal lamp discharge, which is a high voltage difference, which is the one that we use for ozone generators. And the second one is using UV light with a wavelength of 182 nanometers. So if you have a UV light with 182 nanometer, this is an ozone generating UV light that can be used to generate ozone for water systems. If you use other UV types, these are normally used to damage the DNA of bacteria. And to no surprise to everyone, humans also have DNA, and it also can be damaged by UV. So if you would like to use UV, use it in somewhere that there is no humans that can be subject to UV. For example, luggage scanning or luggage disinfection, but don't have humans subject to UV light.
Okay, thank you. Let me move to Mr. Imran. Mr. Imran, a couple of questions for you very quickly on the UV, but also Mr. Juma Saleh is asking you. Question can also go for Engineer Hanan if you can comment after Mr. Imran. How can we verify after disinfection that the disinfection process has been effective? Mr. Imran, you go first.
Yes, I mean, like I said, the regular testing is very important, like Engineer Hanan mentioned. So the maintenance department needs to have a strict planning and process in place so that they can regularly test the systems and ensure that the disinfectant which has been in place is effective. So that's the key thing, that the planning is the key thing, and the regular testing is a key to ensure that the disinfection, which has been applied with the right protocols and with the local regulation requirements, is in place.
Engineer Hanan, very quickly on the topic.
Yeah.
Thanks.
We as a hospital, we have to take a variety of disinfection system actually to protect our staff. As I said, we are the front line here. So we actually buy a UV lamp to disinfect the room, a patient room. After he is recover and go home, we have to disinfect the room. As Mr. Ahmed said, it is very dangerous. So the room have to be empty. The UV light that we purchase, it have a sensor. So whenever there is a patient or a human life, it will not work. So it is working in a very certain criteria. We have to use also air disinfecting. We are putting in the corridor of the hospital. So the nurses, they will feel that the environment is clean. It have a filter, a pre-filter, a HEPA filter, and it have UV light inside, or sometimes by disinfecting the things by ionization. We have the normal filter. We are keeping in the admin rooms. This is normal filter. You can use it even at home. It have very primitive filter just to clean the air, and at least the people feel safe while using it.
Excellent. Thank you, Engineer Hanan. Mr. Shafiq, a question for you from Ibrahim. Ibrahim is asking, do we need to apply UV in residential and commercial buildings as well as hospitals? Mr. Shafiq.
Yes, I think it is one of the possibilities. We can use UV, and also, I was going through a paper wherein the aerial disinfection can be done by using a chemical process of hydrogen peroxide or peroxyacetic acid in line with the manufacturer's instructions. But first of all, I'm telling you, for residences, it is not that critical. If we have a good filter in place in the fan coil unit or the indoor unit, whatever we use, and keep the indoor surfaces, everything clean. And coming back to the commercial area and the hospitals, my study goes, disinfection is a very, large concept, like it involves the cleaning and the rinsing and the disinfecting. And you can even, grade it like a critical, semi-critical, and non-critical. When you use disinfectants, your hands, your skin also gets affected. This also has to be studied by chemical engineers, what is good for humans. Because, we just say disinfectant. What disinfectant in it? How does it, like everybody's using sanitizers nowadays on the hands. What effect does it have on in your bloodstream? What happens when you inhale? This has to be studied in detail before even we apply or we use disinfectants.
Thank you.
This is what, yes.
Let me move to Mr. Ambu. We have a question for you from Mr. Shihab Obaid. He's asking you, is there or are there any regulations regarding the use of gates or solutions used for disinfection? Mr. Ambu. Can you unmute Mr. Ambu, please?
Yeah, sorry. Yeah. Can you repeat the question?
Did you get the question?
Yeah. Can you please repeat the question?
I'll repeat the question. I'll have to scroll down.
No, the authority regulations.
Okay. We're talking about the question.
Dr. Iyad, I can read out the question again, because it was on the answered one. The question, The question is there any regulations? Are there any regulations regarding the use of gates or the solutions used for disinfection?
Use of gates. Okay. All right. See, as of now, for HVAC system, for any disinfection methodology, there is no clear directive from the DM or any other regulations. They talk about disinfection in total, whether it's any premises, whether it's a mall or whether it's a hospital or any other application for public gathering areas. So this is only related to overall disinfection and not specifically related to HVAC system. The HVAC system, what is, though there is no regulation, like what the treatment which has been proposed, whether it is UV or whether it is ozone. Ozone also is a methodology which has been used successfully if it is correctly controlled, like what Ahmed was mentioning. So it is dangerous, but we have used ozone successfully in densely populated areas even earlier, because the air treatment which was done to meet the authorities' requirements in terms of the air quality, like I'm talking about a nightclub or a area which is densely populated. Ozone has been done and it has been very effectively used for odor treatment as well as for the smoke and other treatment. And it has been very successful. Municipality didn't have any objection at that point of time. And now, when you talk about the other disinfection methodology, which is being broadly brought in, is the easiest one is the UV lamps. And here again, though there is no clear directive that it should be used, people are proposing, they are getting themselves prepared, but at the same time, this is, people are trying to make use of it. The manufacturers and the vendors, whether, how effectively it is going to function is a question which needs to be seen. So UV lamps also had been, even earlier also, it was an accepted method of disinfection. But now people are trying to use this as a, because it is the easiest way to retrofit or to do disinfection. So that's my point on.
Thank you, Mr. Ambo. I want to conclude at this point, and I want to thank all our panelists, Engineer Hanan Ahmed, Mr. Mohammed Zakaria, Mr. Azmi Abul Huda, Mr. Ahmed Al-Kiki. Thank you very much. I hope I did not miss anyone. Mr. Shafiq Rahman, thank you very much. It's been an absolute pleasure. I'd like now to say good morning to Frederick, who is sparkling on the other end of this laptop. Frederick, welcome and good morning.
Thank you very much, Dr. Riyad, for your excellent moderating job yet again today and being with us from Kuwait. I hope everything is well there. Thank you very much for your invaluable contribution. And I would like to extend a very warm welcome and good morning to all our distinguished speakers and sponsors and partners today for this second edition of the Disinfection webinar. Welcome on board. As Dr. Riyad said, we have 160 delegates registered today from 24 countries. And it is extremely pleasing from a personal point of view also to welcome on board and to see again with us today followers and supporters, clients from day one, 15 years ago, sorry. As you may know, we're celebrating our 15th anniversary this year. And it is extremely pleasing to see people like Prakash Shablani from Unigulf and Peter Tracy with us this morning, who have been, as I said, supporting us and from day one. So thank you very much for that indeed. Now I would like to proceed, if you allow me, with the sponsor recognition ceremony. And we have, can you see my screen? It's okay. Right, in our silver sponsor category today, we have Concept Arabia introducing their new face mask called Face Armor. In our silver sponsor, in our bronze sponsor categories, we would like to thank wholeheartedly FTC Global for their support this morning, as well as UL. And now in our strategic knowledge partner category, we would like to thank Emergy, as well as Gulf Consult, and obviously ProLead. and as well as our strategic HVACR recruitment partner, carriersbay.com. Now I would like to take you through, I'm sure you're well aware that we have increased our digital presence, like obviously a lot of companies in this pandemic context this year. And as you may be already aware, we have obviously the very popular climatecontrolme.com website, which is mainly news driven. And we recently launched last year a more global portal entitled climatecontroljournal.com, which is divided into geographical zones. So giving you news as they happen in the industry for every geographical area of this planet. And as I said, we are celebrating very proudly our 15th anniversary this year. And I can safely say that what has made the strength and gained the respect of our readers is the editorial pertinence and objectivity and relevance of our editorial. And you can see some prime examples on the screen here. A very recent interview with the HRI president, Stephen Urek, and other articles that you may have come across very recently. Not obviously forgetting our very popular guides and directories, which have their dedicated website, like the Climate Control Directory.com and Refrigeration Bias Guide, which will be out again with a new edition in November, especially the Refrigeration Bias Guide out at the Gulf Food Manufacturing, which is supposed to take place, the physical exhibition in the Dubai World Trade Center in November. I would like to take you through our upcoming webinars, if you may. We have one, in fact, coming up tomorrow, 10th of August, from 3 to 6 p.m. UAE time, with the main focus being the pumps industry, being the heart of the matter, pumping systems in district cooling and other applications. And followed by a virtual intervention on vaccines, featuring a very prominent Dr. Toby Peters, professor in cold chain economy at the University of Birmingham, an expert in the matter of vaccine, cold storage, and safe transportation. So invite you to join that as well. It will be followed by the IEQ virtual exhibition this time, featuring a two-day event with a webinar and introducing a new track where we shall be profiling with video profiles the companies that have brought innovative solutions in this fight of COVID-19 in the indoor air quality sphere. So we shall be profiling what we call the champions of the big fight. So there are opportunities for those companies indeed to profile themselves. And hopefully on the 15th of September, I say hopefully because we just received the guidelines to hold again safely our physical events from the government. So it should happen in a hotel on the 15th of September. But please do check our website very regularly, cpiwebinars.com. As you know, that the situation is very transient and dynamic at the moment. So please do check for the latest information on that. This event is already sponsored by Mecca, Samsung, and Wild Golf, as well as Carriers Bay. And it's entitled the Client Consultant Contractor Conference, featuring IT in HVAC as a co-located event. So we invite you to again attend this very popular event of ours. And we shall be closing the year again with another landmark event and its 10th anniversary as well, namely the Climate Control Awards that you're all familiar with. The new categories will be announced very shortly on our website, so do stay tuned, and we look forward to welcoming you, hopefully in person this time, to this gala dinner, and happening on the 24th of November in Dubai again. So thank you very much to all our speakers, sponsors and partners and Dr. Riyad again for this intervention on this webinar. And I invite our sponsors now to proceed with their presentations. Thank you very much for your invitation this morning. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Fred. I'd like to thank again all our panelists and all the participants from 24 countries. There is 160 of them participating with us. Before we go to our first speaker, I'd like to say that there is a structured Q&A towards the end of this webinar. So if you still have questions that that has not been answered, please stick around. And also for the panelists, please stick around so that we continue our interesting conversation that we launched this morning. Our next speaker is Mr. Rafi. Mr. Rafi is the co-founder of Concept Arabia. He's educated in the US with degrees in architectural engineering from Arizona State University and business management from Western International University. He's an accomplished professional with a combined dedicated experience of 26 years in business development, marketing, and construction industries. Some of his accomplishments are rebranded and revamped Concept Arabia tourism site, created unique face mask and brand called Face Armor, developed with architect Philip Jones, a creative community concept called work share accommodation for blue-collared workers of Dubai. Mr. Rafi, good morning.
Thank you very much. First of all, good morning to all that are attending the Disinfection 360 webinar, and I hope you're all safe and well. The thing is that we at Concept Arabia, we're very thrilled about being involved in the 360 webinar event. And I am here today to let you know about our Face Armor PM 2.5 filtered mask. And we're doing our part in contributing to the prevention. The thing is that I'll take you now to the presentation. Let me just switch over to sharing my screen. Are you able to see the screen yet?
Yes, Rafi, we can see the screen.
Okay, all right. Yeah, so with us at Face Armor, we created and designed a new mask, the PM 2.5 filtered mask. And the way that we designed it, first of all, it has to be comfortable, being able to use on long periods of time. So you can also customize it by putting your artwork on the mask itself. And as you see, the filter goes in a slit from the inside, which is a 5-layered mask, 5-layered filter that goes in there. Now, what we have done is that as time progresses, there's new filters coming out, new technology coming out, and we've made our mask adaptable to any type of filters that may come out in the future as well. Like right now, there's talk about a HEPA insert and a TNT insert. So once that comes out to fruition, we're ready for that as well. And it's a reusable mask, washable, comes in 4 different colors, customize it with whatever you like, with the logos and your domain name or whatever print you want to put there. And shows here that the 5 layers is this, that what comprises of our 5-layered PM 2.5 mask. Now, the Face Armor is a customized, reusable quality mask with carbon activated filters and a breathing valve that offers protection against viruses, but not at the cost of comfort. Made of high-grade cotton, mesh cloth, and polyester cotton, it promotes ease in breathing. is skin-friendly and is comfortable to wear on long periods of time. That's what because we're going to be using it on a more regular basis. It's not like 5 minutes and over and done with. And in our environment that we're at, especially in the summer, it gets really, tough. So we had to make something simple, easy, and adaptable to our environment here or anywhere else for that matter. Its biggest feature, as I explained, is its 5-layer PM 2.5 filter, which means it can prevent particulate matter that are up to 2.5 microns in width from entering the airway. Tests indicate that PM 2.5 filter with a properly fitted cloth mask can reduce airborne particles by as much as 90%. To elaborate further, the filters are made from the same advanced materials used for respirators like the N95. So the unique armor mask design allows you to interchange the PM 2.5 filter insert with any other filter you prefer. So, at the moment we're taking orders. We have the capacity of 10,000 pieces of the high quality mask per day production. They come in, right now the colors that we got available are black, navy blue, red, and pink. And if you are a corporate, the mask can be customized, as I said, with the artwork, and we're happy to announce that we also have, we're producing the glow-in-the-dark printing, which would be an ideal feature for police personnel in the evenings, in the dark quarters, civil defense personnel, FM personnel, bike riders, sports enthusiasts, you name it, and this is just showing you how our glow-in-the-dark artwork works. In the night, you will see, your image or whatever in dark. And in the day, it's just a simple one, your logo. And the specs are there, for people to see. Reusable carbon activated filters, as I explained, the sizes, anti-pollution, cold, dust, pollen allergy, all of these things are taken care of. These are some of the ideas of artworks you can put on there. You can use them as promotion. You can stick any kind of fun things on there, the tree of life, the tongue, the coat of arms over here is shown of Armenia, and the lips. You can do any kind of artwork. The sky's the limit. And for this, in lieu of Disinfection 360, we're happy to say, as part of my presentation, I'm happy to announce a promotional offer for corporations and individuals of 10% discount on the first purchase of the unique face armor mask. And to avail the discount, I encourage you to send in the body of in the inquiry, the phrase 10% 360 to inquiries at myfacearmor.com. And my details are there to get in touch with us. We have a landing page where you can go to, where it has all the details. And if you fire across an email on inquiries at myfacearmor.com, put what your inquiry is, within 24 hours we'll get back to you. And so the thing is that what I wanted to also demonstrate is in light, sorry, one second. How do I remove the shared screen? One second. Yeah, okay. So what I'd like to demonstrate is that this is the mask. And the thing is that, we do the light test, whereas you want to also make sure you don't contaminate or bring in. So the thing is that the lighter test, will also show that nothing will come out, which is important. but you're going to be able to breathe safely and comfortably. And as you see here, this is where, you know, the insert goes in, simply goes in, and it is depending on the use. If you're, let's say, on the construction site and working, I don't know, 9 hours, sweating, this and that, then every 2 weeks you would change this insert. You would wash the mask itself, you know, in just room temperature water. And the filter you got to take out, throw it out, and then put another one in. So with each piece that you purchase, 2 filters comes with you, but you can also order more, you know, in bundles of whatever, 500, 1,000 pieces, keep them aside. So this is what we're all about. And the other thing that I wanted to also share with you, just this Friday, there was a challenge released by, it's called the We Mask Challenge. Let me pull that up. By WHO. And let me share that screen.
Mr. Rafi?
Yes, please.
Yeah, can we wrap up in a minute, please? Time is sort of up.
Yeah, okay. Well, let me just share the second screen, and it's a quick one, and that's pretty much it. Can you see the screen now?
Sure.
All right, cool.
Every day, I carry 2 things with me everywhere I go. Hand sanitizer, so that I can keep my hands clean, and a mask, so that I can protect myself and others from COVID-19. World Mask Week starts on Friday, and today, WHO is launching our new Wear a Mask Challenge, and I'm urging you all to keep wearing a mask that covers your nose, mouth, and chin. Keep physical distancing. Keep cleaning your hands. Keep away from big crowds, and keep covering your mouth and nose when you can. Do it all. We all need to play a role in breaking the chains of transmission and bringing this pandemic under control. By wearing a mask, you're not only protecting yourself, you're sending a message of solidarity and protecting other people, especially those most vulnerable to the virus. Whether you're wearing a medical mask as you care for someone that's sick, or wearing a 3-layer fabric mask as you use public transport, pick up groceries, or are in crowded areas. Show off your masks by joining the Wear a Mask Challenge. Take a photo or a video of yourself wearing a mask. Share it on your social media and nominate friends to do the mask challenge. We're the ones that can end this pandemic. So wear a mask, do it all, save lives.
All right. So yeah, so that's it, and we're actually part of the Wear a Mask Challenge. So how do I unshare the screen?
Thank you, Rafi. Thank you.
Yeah.
Appreciate the presentation. Please stick around for the Q&A, structured Q&A at the end of this webinar.
Yeah, thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Thank you. I'd like now to invite our next speaker, Mr. Christopher Ashworth. Mr. Christopher Ashworth is the National Service Line Manager for UL, specializing in built environment through UL Environment and Sustainability Division. Currently, he and his team provide advisory services for indoor environmental quality, energy, and sustainability projects. He has extensive knowledge of sustainability, Edgevac mechanical system, and indoor environmental quality as they relate to constructing and operating commercial, public, institutional, and residential buildings. Mr. Ashworth is the former chair of the U.S. Green Building Council, National Capital Region, and has been active speaking engagement regarding the indoor environment for over 10 years. Christopher, good morning.
Good morning. Can you hear me?
We can hear you clearly.
Excellent. Thank you so much for letting me participate in this great event. It's indoor environment, and I've been working in this field since, as somebody said, 1998. I'm about the same kind of length. Specifically working with commercial real estate, and I joke around with people all the time. I have young kids, and I say, what I do is finally cool, right? It was always about energy efficiency, other kinds of aspects. Now people are actually thinking about what they're breathing and how their buildings are operating, not even just to save energy, but now to optimize themselves. So what I figured I would touch on about, and UL's been having multiple different webinars and education sessions that you can just look up regarding the pandemic and free services we're trying to provide, like our return to work playbook, et cetera, that we're trying to provide the world because, well, we need to keep moving while we're still solving the problem, as we all talked about. So I figured I'd add some topics of the things that people are doing around the world and a lot in the United States from a corporate standpoint, from an office standpoint, and how we can start moving with best practices and what we can do. The majority of our buildings are built, as we all know on this call. Approximately 90% of the building stock are being created. So how can we take these buildings and optimize them in the middle of a pandemic to try to get people returning to work in many aspects? And as you see here, here's some of the topics I'm going to tackle in my 15 minutes really fast to go through. But this is a shrunk down version of a much longer presentation, as you can imagine. But the big part that when you're looking at a pandemic or any kind of issue, I'm originally a systems engineer, so I like to break things down. It's a big part is, like, let's say, infection control. It's what can we do? What's our general responsibility from a building perspective, or from a corporate standpoint, or even from an individual standpoint, to the mask discussion that just happened. Right? What is our personal responsibility, but also what is the biggest communication aspects from a corporate standpoint? Hazardous communication, record keeping, providing proper PPE, and not just proper PPE or personal protective equipment, but proper training on that PPE. It's always a hysterical thing to me when somebody will provide something but not give them the proper education or training too. It's like the fishing pole, but you have to show them how to fish also. You can't just assume that people know what to do. And a lot of this comes back to historical bloodborne pathogen training and basic training that people have to go through. And the pandemic is very similar to that, right? It's washing your hands, it's wearing a mask, not touching your face, and not going back to basics for many aspects. It's always interesting hearing people tell others to wash their hands. And I'm going to break it down into a couple different sections, into janitorial, air quality. Water quality is actually a concern in some other topics. So let's first tackle the janitorial practice. As we all know, or many of us know, research is really showing that surfaces are becoming less and less of a general overarching concern, but there is still a risk point there. And the risk point, obviously, regarding the pandemic and COVID-19 and contracting it, we want to eliminate as many of those risks as possible, just as the WHO video said, right? He carries hand sanitizer with them. Well, janitorial best practices also have to be followed. I mean, it's very much of a common sense aspect. Well, what are those best practices? And that really depends on your space and your space usage and how you're going to implement that. So again, it's planning, and then it's implementation of what you're developing. There's tons of resources out there. One is in the US, it's EPA N-List that has approved cleaning products or cleaning chemicals of certain thresholds to ensure that you are using the proper products. A big part also about janitorial best practices is confirming that they're actually being implemented. There's many ways you can go about doing this without having to test specifically for COVID-19, which is a very specific RNA test. One way would be via, let's say, ATP sampling, which is a surface bacteria sample to confirm that after the cleaning fluid has gone through, to take, let's say, sample random samples of high touch spaces via what's essentially an ATP sample is just testing for general bacteria, to see how it's actually working. Is the protocol that you're working up appropriate? And a further example to that would be stairwells. People will be taking stairwells and are taking stairwells more often. Well, is that part of your janitorial practices to clean those railings? Historically, it wasn't. Those were only used in many buildings for emergency purposes, but now they need to be cleaned because we're going to have people going through them. And this really all correlates to the indoor air quality, which is, as was touched on earlier in the great panel in the very beginning, this is where the rubber really hits the road, specifically from this virus, human-to-human interaction. And it's pretty simple. It's always I put a very simple statement on the slide. Good IAQ equals lower risk. If you really want to break it down, the proper tenets of indoor environmental quality that have been around since the first HVAC systems were created. And when I work a lot with ASHRAE, I'm a member of ASHRAE, which is the American Society of Heating, Refrigeration, and Air Conditioning Engineers. They write just standards for ventilation, etc. You want to bring in as much outside air as possible to dilute. And what's important was when I say outside air, it was what somebody appropriately said in the panel, conditioned and filtered outside air, because we don't want to have any unintended consequences coming through. If you're in a very polluted area, we do a bunch of work in different locations where the outside air quality is not optimal. Bringing that in unfiltered can cause other kinds of issues. So when we say bring in outside air, bring in proper outside air and maximize it to have as few air changes as possible. The indoor environmental quality of our spaces isn't just integral to the reduction of spread of the virus, but it's also integral to communicating to the workforce or to people in hotels that they are safe. And I think for the global economy, that is very important for people to have confidence that the buildings they're walking into are doing the best of their ability to reduce their risk of transmission of the virus. And this all comes down to, as somebody in the panel said, a couple of different avenues, right? Retro commissioning for these existing buildings to optimize these mechanical systems, to have them go back to spec and proper points of operation. Ventilation and dilution, as I said before. Maximizing your filtration capabilities is another large part, in that if your mechanical system cannot handle high MERV or efficiency rating of filtration type, MERV is a MERV rating. It's a very common term. And what it is it's how good the filter is. MERV 1 would pretty much be the one picture that the doctor showed where you can see your hand through it, all the way to HEPA grade filters. Well, you don't want to install a filter or upgrade your filters into your existing mechanical system to the point where it actually will reduce the airflow to the point of either breaking the equipment or going through and stopping the airflow so you can't even get those air changes. So it's optimizing what you have. As somebody appropriately said, it's doing the best of what you can do is better than nothing. And that is what we really need to focus on as we come up with different air cleaning technologies and different strategies to combat the virus. Touching on air cleaning technology, UV was talked about. It's always fascinating to me when people discuss UV. They say it's this great solution, but they always want to ignore this. It's an engineered solution. So especially UV in the airstream, air moves very fast, a lot faster than water. And when you want to treat the air, if you want to treat it with UV, which I've seen multiple applications of the airstream, you want to have an engineered solution. You just don't put a UV light in a piece of ductwork and walk away and say, that's not going to be doing anything. Just you wouldn't want to put it in a conference room without proper shielding because it can give you skin cancer. So understanding what you have and how to optimize it is going to be, and again, these are core tenets of the indoor environment that have been preached for decades. It's just now that there is a single point of focus on the global world that we're taking it into greater account. Water quality is something that has not really been brought up when you're talking about the pandemic, because we're not worried about it spreading the virus, the water quality. But with many facilities shut down or vacant, just talked to a good friend, and he managed a portfolio of buildings, and one of his high rises in downtown Philadelphia in the United States is about 500,000 square feet, and there were 35 people in the building on Friday. So a building is not designed to do that. A building is very much like a human. It needs to work out. It needs to run. The cardiovascular system or the HVAC system of it need to run. Pumps need to run. That's when they work the best, not when they're sitting dormant. And from a water quality standpoint, it's the same kind of aspect. If a shower is not run, for example, the water will become tepid and will essentially become what's called a dead leg. We'll just have lukewarm water or room water temperature sitting there in a shower head. That then can grow bacteria. Legionnaires' disease is becoming a greater and greater concern because Legionella grows in those exact conditions. Dark, moist, wet objects like shower heads, and bacteria will grow. So what do? Well, we have to have plans for this. We need to implement Legionella risk management plans. We need to run our systems. Even if no one's there, we need to run these systems to ensure that we're protecting the people when they do re-enter. Spaces, hotel rooms, again, are prime examples where if a space is just sitting there dormant and you aspirate some water from that shower, the first person in there in weeks or months, you can cause a much bigger problem than just, let's say, smelly water. It can cause many problems. So understanding your water quality risks and how your building or your facility is operating is integral to a safe re-entry to the space. And as I mentioned, let's talk about one of unintended consequences. A little plug, I guess. We inspect facilities globally at UL, and one of the big things that we've been finding as we're going through and doing these inspections, as buildings, if you take a 500,000 square foot building, that's about 30, 40 stories, and there's only been 30 people in it, people aren't being observant as they once were of leaks, let's say. A different facility had a leak situation that was going on for a couple weeks, where clean water was just running down the water fountain down 10 floors, I believe it was. And no one knew because of where it was located, and the engineering staff has been reduced in force. So again, there's many unintended consequences of the facility. Additionally, it can cause undue stress on an HVAC system. People would wonder how. Well, if pumps are not running, if cooling towers are barely operating, you can really have an effect on the seals of the pumps, etc. And as they do reoccupy, and people are trying to maximize the ventilation rate, for example, and if you're in certain parts of the world where you have to, your cooling coils, etc., need to work extra because of the temperature, the humidity, you now can start causing some real problem unknowingly. And now you went from an empty building that had way too much outside air on a per person basis to a reoccupied building with a mechanical system that can't do anything, because let's say the coils are dirty, as some of those initial photos were shown, or the system actually is broken because it can't handle what you're asking to do. I tell people all the time, a fan or a pump is the best colleague you'll ever have. If it runs, let's say, on a pressure set point, it will run on that pressure set point till it breaks. And it will do everything it can to get to that pressure set point. So to really understand your building or your facility and how it's interacting with the greater environment is really key, and how vacant spaces can have multiple compounding effects on the indoor environment in the long run, and also on the mechanical systems are key. So what do we do? Things? Yes.
1 minute left. Can we wrap up, please?
Last slide. Perfect. Is having a plan. And it sounds very boring, but I know the engineers on the call are always get excited about this, like I too. It's creating a re-entry plan, preparing the building, preparing the people, controlling their access. How are you handling these different social distancing recommendations, and communicating out on a consistent basis that, again, communication folds back to the plan, and it's a circle of solution, and that's what we have to be working toward, is a solution. So thanks so much, and I think I ended right on time.
Thank you, Christopher. A very interesting presentation. Please stick around for the structured Q&A. We have some questions coming in for you. I'd like to now introduce our next speaker, Mr. Osama Abeid. Mr. Abeid is the CEO and FTC Global, representing factories, trademarks, and business development, and dealing with disinfection, sanitizing products, including gates, dispensers, temperature readers, access control units, and HOCL generators. Mr. Abeid, good morning.
Good morning. Yes, hi everybody. I would like to start by appreciating CPI Climate Control and Mr. Frederick and panel for their efforts to present the most important topic at this time, which is the disinfection protocol and solution. I will start sharing my presentation. Our presentation about active solution for disinfection. So, sharing screen here. Where is it? Okay. I hope it shows now. Yes. My name is Osama Abeid, CEO of FTC Global. Our company is specialized in representing factories, franchises, trademarks, mystery shoppers, specialists, and business development for several business factors. Representing here our disinfection gates and disinfection solution, we are helping several businesses control businesses sectors in improving their sales during this pandemic situation and continue their business in safe environment, especially in UAE. We all, as a private business in UAE, should involve in helping contain the spread of COVID-19 and help the government of their efforts to solving this pandemic. I will move forward to the second. Our company representing disinfection gates and disinfection solutions. So the second sheet will be, I don't know why it doesn't move. Yeah. Okay. So we need at this moment the business to go through, especially the tourism and health sectors, to move forward in business again. We designed a new beautiful indoor disinfection gate, which can be used inside different businesses like hospitals, hotels, schools, airports, and other needs. To move forward businesses as an extra precaution if there is any second wave of continue of this worst pandemic ever happened. Our gate is easy to install, need low maintenance, small in size, and good looking glossy fiberglass material. Our disinfection gate is fully automatic with no touch disinfection equipped with motion sensors. Our gate has variety of colors to match any business interior design. We allow to use only approved disinfection solution like HOCl, hypochlorous acid, and we partner with suppliers of this solution, which is approved by Dubai Municipality and is safe for kids and pets to ensure a safe and germ-free environment at facilities, buildings, communities, camps, etc. It has 10 spray nozzles to cover the whole body. So every part of the body will be disinfected, and to make sure that there is no viruses catch in the clothes, hair, or feet. Our gates market retail price around 9,500 dirhams and can be cheaper in wholesale price around 7,000 dirhams. Our gates includes automatic hand sanitizer, control system, infrared sensor, 10 nozzles, piping, solar lights, non-slip mat, and a 20-liter tank. Also, we can add it also to the gate access control camera or temperature reader. The temperature reader is accurate, fast reading, automatic detect temperature without touch, alarm for high and normal readings, and have built-in rechargeable battery without the need for someone to hold temperature gun to read the temperature for your business clients, all within the cost range of around 1,000 dirham. The access control face recognition camera can be used also to check temperature, recognize if the customer wearing mask or not, and also can be used to open doors by detecting face or ID, good for employees and not open doors for any unrecognized persons or persons with any symptoms of underlying infection, saving money, time, manpower, and security guards. We have also other solutions for reading temperature and sanitizing hands by introducing 2-in-1 unit. This unit, which can read temperature by waving hands, and auto sanitizer dispenser, which work with the help of infrared sensor, easy to hang or place in any small area where people can pass by for test and disinfect the hands with no touch or manpower required, with low price around 1,200 dirhams. We also provide businesses with touchless and sanitizing system which automatic sensor. Enable a quick and easy hand disinfection and eliminate cross-contamination. Built-in rechargeable battery, easy to install as we noticed that most businesses uses the Bosch sanitizing system, which is not recommended at this time and situation. This unit price with as low as 150 dirhams can solve the eliminates cross-contamination. For the disinfection solution supplies, we have agreement with the regulated approval local supplier to make sure that the liquid spraying in our booths are safe and approved by local health department. And we only allow using hypochlorous acid, HOCl, from 100 to 150 ppm. Also, there is a lot of companies who's producing this solution in UAE, and we are happy to find this solution available in UAE, which is not available in most of other countries like Saudi Arabia and other countries. We are facing a problem for supplying this solution to other countries. And we was looking for suppliers for this solution long time in other countries, and it's hard to find, and it's hard to export also this solution for Middle East, which is make a problem. That's why we tried to find other solution. So we also can provide, so we can provide small hypochlorous generators to hospitals, hotels, and other businesses to generate the HOCl solution inside the business. It can generate 60 liters an hour of 150 ppm concentration with low price, average around 4,500. We ship this to several other countries where it's not available, the solution of hypochlorous, and there is no companies providing this. So this is an effective way to get this solution, which is the best solution for disinfection. And this can be also added to any hospitals or hotels, and to be cheaper for producing this solution. This unit, it's cost low cost, and generate this solution from salt and water, and easy to produce this, and can be like to get tested by local authority and be used for their own use. It saves time, cost, and supply of this effective disinfection solution, and generate inside business for several disinfection needs, including hand sanitizing, area, and body sanitizing. It is ideal for hospitals and hotels to save in the most expensive, most using disinfection solution. We can provide also big generators that produce 300 liters an hour with 100 ppm concentration, suitable for large-scale industrial production, and can supply a full production line of HOCl solution. This generator uses only water, salt, and electricity to generate the most effective disinfection solution, which can kill 99.99% germs, bacteria, viruses, and fungi in 7 seconds. And it is 100 more effective than the normal alcoholic, which is not safe sanitizers available in the market, which could cause fire or any other sensitivity issues. It has been published in UK news about how effective precautions UAE taking at this time, using hypochlorous and disinfection gates, where they are saying in Daily Mail UK newspaper, spray that costs pennies and kills viruses instantly could be a simple, cheap solution to Britain COVID nightmare, as scientists ask why we are not already using it. That was in the Britain UK newspaper. The Express newspaper in UK also said, spray that kills virus could end pandemic, but it's not being used. The national news in UAE said health experts urge UK to use antiviral spray used with a great effect in UAE, Water like disinfectant has been central to UAE disinfection program. So we, UAE, become the lead in using the disinfection solution and gates for other countries. We are proud to be a part of this innovation solutions to help in preventing the spread of COVID-19. And we all know that this solution was used widely in Western countries and developed countries long time ago and was approved and used in a range way. And in Wikipedia, you can read about it. It's the best solution at this time. And I don't know why it's not used much in our Middle East countries. But we are proud that we are using this in UAE a lot. So our gates are glossy, small, and easy to install. Can be different color, white, green, and blue, to match any interior design for hotels, hospitals, airports, and any other unique businesses. It is like, yeah.
1 minute left, please. Thank you.
Okay. It is, yeah, I'm just completing round. It is like a fine design, good-looking furniture. Can be added to any business and to be distinguished from other competitors, especially to improve the tourism industry. We partner with Dubai Link also, who has business-to-business GT applications to improve the tourist and hotel business in UAE. Thank you for listening to our presentation, and if you have any questions or need more clarification, please contact us by email at info@ftcglobals.com or call us or send WhatsApp to 055 100 7862. Thank you very much. If you have any question, let me know. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate the presentation. I'd like now to invite again the audience and the participants from 24 countries. There's 160 of them sending questions. So I'd like to invite again all the panelists and the speakers to be available for the structured Q&A. Do I have all the speakers on?
Yeah. Yep.
Okay, excellent. The first question comes from Abdul Rahman Al-Saqr. He's asking, airlines have upgraded their air filters to HEPA. What have shopping malls done in terms of air filtration to ensure visitors are safe? We don't see any commercials for shopping malls coming out and saying, please come and shop over here. So where do we stand from on this point? Do I have Mr. Azmi on board? If not, I'd like Mr. Ahmed Kiki to comment on this.
I am here actually.
Okay, go ahead, Mr. Azmi.
Yeah, I heard the question. As far as I know, in shopping malls, measures were mainly focused on the entrance to the malls, the capacity of the malls, the maintenance measures being taken in terms of cleaning and disinfection of surfaces within the malls. I'm not really aware of, I'm not saying there is no measures taken related to filtration or filters, there should be, but I'm not really aware of what exactly they have done in terms of filtration in all the malls or in some malls in the UAE.
Excellent. Mr. Ahmed Kiki, can you hear me?
Yes, I can. So I'll answer because we own 4 hotels in Ras Al Khaimah. We don't operate any malls and we don't operate any hotels. To be honest, we just own the hotels. However, our hotels, we had one of them that was closed during the pandemic and reopened recently, and 3 of them kept running. And I like very much the presentation that was done by Christopher, which explained that even during the closure, still systems had to run. You cannot just close them. So the measures that we're taking, there is already measures in place to improve air quality and water quality in hotels. And these has been carried over during the closure times. In terms of additions that were implemented post the pandemic, were disinfections to surfaces. We are now looking at possible, there is another solution that is called in the market ionization, which is simply, it's again, it's ozone generation on a different name because some people don't like to hear the word ozone. But it's to be implemented in the ducts to sanitize the air and the surfaces. There is thermal cameras that were added, and all the filters were changed. However, as Christopher mentioned in his, and I would like to take the bit on water in here. So water has 4 particular problems: suspended solids, biofouling, corrosion, and scaling. And if we take this to air, it's going to be suspended solids and biofouling. So suspended solids is a mechanical problem of water and of air, which are solved by filters, while biofouling is a chemical problem that needs chemicals or biocides that can get rid of the bacteria, such as Legionella, which is common in AC systems, and other bacteria or viruses. In terms of chemicals to be used, there is not much that can be used against viruses, except a strong biocide such as ozone or UV light and so on.
Excellent, thank you. Engineer Shafiq Al-Rahman.
Yes.
There is a lot of hype on hygienic AHUs and critical parameters in selecting them. How important are they? Can they really make a difference? Engineer Shafiq?
Yes, you know, hygienic AHUs, first of all, let us understand what is hygienic. There should be no sharp edges inside the air handling unit. And the condensate drain has to be properly sloped outside. And the air coil has to be, you know, clean with high pressure steam. This is, you know, will keep the hygienity of the AHU. And the selection of the filter is of prime importance. Like we have to select a high quality filter to arrest microbes, viruses, and bacteria, not just dust, you know. This is where we are not concentrating in a hospital, and especially in critical care areas. We have to take care of that the filters should be, you know, arresting bacteria, virus, and whatever contaminants, whatever is the biological side. So that will keep the space, you know, in a hygienic environment. And during the time of selection, we have to be very, very careful about it. And, you know, this maintenance also has to be, you know, taken care in a very, very careful manner. And there should be, you know, a periodic checking of all these parameters.
Thank you. Engineer Hanan, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, a question from Ibrahim. He's saying, whatever we do, we always come back to the basic principles of indoor air quality to minimize the, you know, not only this pandemic, but the general contamination. What do you see, or what have you done from your standpoint in terms of healthcare facilities to improve filtration? You know, we all know in hospitals you have a minimum of 4-stage filtration, but you know, from your point of view, what else? How can we raise the bar in healthcare facilities?
Actually, by continuous BBM, we have schedule all over the year. We are checking, cleaning the coils, the filter from outside and inside. We are changing. Plus, before this is, and then we have with the pandemic COVID, we are putting the HEPA filter. We are using medical care HEPA filter, not ordinary HEPA filter. We are doing, after we are putting this, we are doing testing commissioning Also, how to fix the HEPA filter, it's very important, because sometimes the workers, when they are fixing, they are, squeezing some, it is like a small hole, they are squeezing some parts. So after doing also testing commissioning, we are doing validation. So every 6 months, we are doing validation for all the fixed HEPA filter to check that they are functioning, or how they are functioning. They will give the exact data, the temperature, humidity, how the temperature after fixing the HEPA filter, it is how much it's coming, the humidity, everything. The how many changes per hours. We are measuring the changes per hours in this room, and if there is no changes, how much air it's going out, and all these measures we are taking into consideration.
Thank you, Engineer Hanan. I want to move to Rafi. Rafi, are you there? I can't hear you, Rafi. Can you unmute Rafi, please?
Yes, I'm on.
Excellent. You've spoken about masks in specific terms. I'd like to hear your comments. There are a lot of back and forth conversation about we have not done our filtration homework, and now we've got to put our mask on instead of, so the filter has really moved to a face filter rather than doing a preventive measure and reinforcing filtration. How do we balance, I don't want to say the argument, but how do we balance the discussion? People are in a way questioning the integrity of wearing a face mask all the time.
Okay.
Contamination. And at the same time, studies
sorry, go
that,
ahead. Sorry.
And there are other studies that showing wearing a face mask will definitely be of an added benefit. Chris? Rafi?
Yeah, see, the way that I see it, let's say instead of taking a science approach, just take a logical approach. The thing is that you're trying to protect yourself from anything entering into your mouth or your nose and this and that. So simply, you have a proper mask in place that is comfortable, that stops that from happening, or from the stuff getting out. This is one point that I see that helps, because that's how the COVID is spreading, right? So you do that part, and we're one part of the chain. So means air filtration in buildings is required, plus the mask is required, plus cleaning your hands is required. All of these we will contain and get rid of or push the numbers down as low as possible, that they become insignificant. Yeah. So that's where I believe that, there's so many things flying around on the internet, people's views of this and that. But at the end, it just comes down to it. You protect yourself, your face, your eyes. Like eyes, some people, they wear glasses, they don't. But the mask itself, I believe that it's very important to have one on, and to have a proper one on, where it gives you the feeling that you're doing something about protecting yourself. You're making your brain feel comfortable about this whole situation. And if you're blocking the airways from any contamination to happen, it's a start. So this is my feeling on the whole subject. And I believe there's a lot of people that I've talked to that are doctors and so forth and so on. They totally agree, but you always have that one odd individual that, comes out, and like Sweden, for example, they're saying walk around without a mask. I don't accept that, because you're making other people, catch it, or if you're infected, so you got all kinds of things. But my opinion is this.
Yeah, thank you. Next question for Mr. Osama. It's from Saeed Al-Shamsi. Is asking you, what testing have you done to ensure that the gate will disinfect the whole body? And are there any side effects to using such a system? on the body, eyes, whatever it is. Mr. Osama.
The most important of the gates and the tunnels is the solution used. The machine is only spraying whatever you put in it. So the most important is the solution used. And the solution should be used is HOCl, which is hypochlorous, which is safe for pets and body and human, and can be, doesn't affect eyes also, no sensitivity. This, we made sure that this solution is safe and approved by local municipalities. So this is the most important in the thing on the gate. So other thing is the nozzles. We have like 10 nozzles in our gate, which can cover the whole body. So the hair, the foot also from underline, it can be disinfected because the mat will be absorbing some of the liquid. The gate doesn't have ramp, so it's easy to move through. That's why, and the mat at the bottom will be wet with the same solution, so it will be disinfect also the foot from below. And the whole body will be sprayed by the nozzles, 10 nozzles. The top will be, I think, 3 nozzles, side 8 and 8, so the whole body will be covered. At this point, this will be effective to disinfect. As long as the disinfection solution will be approved and good, we'll make sure that the whole body will be disinfected. After, also the hands can be disinfected by the dispenser at the front of the gate.
Thank you. Mr. Zakaria, we have a question from Rohit. He's asking you to comment, please, on commissioning of Edgevac system is important, especially in new buildings. How can we effectively exercise that?
Well, as far as commissioning is concerned, there is a notion that commissioning is something that happens after all the installation is completed, and when substantial construction is over, and when startup and tab testing activity starts. That is not the correct opinion. There is a guideline in ASHRAE called Guideline 0 that talks about commissioning to start at the very conceptual stage of the project, so that the owner's project requirement is properly captured by the commissioning authority, and this owner's project requirement, that project conceptual requirement, is transmitted appropriately to the design team, and it has to be ensured that the design team is performing the basis of design, and the execution of design is compatible with the owner's project requirement properly. That will be ensured by a third-party commissioning agents or commissioning authority. And then when during construction, the owner's project requirement, the concept is carried through construction to ensure that it is properly implemented. And then during handover, and then proper commissioning and handover phase of the project, proper execution of functional performance of all the systems are executed that need to be properly tested, documented, and it should be handed over also in a very systematic manner to the facility management team with an appropriate training that must cover all the facets of training. As you know, somebody mentioned about training for facility management team regarding the design intent and proper execution. And training, the proper execution of training need to be video recorded, and that should be available for the future technicians and facility management team that comes into the project. And more importantly, a system manual that need to be compiled, so that the system manual will capture design intent, the project concept and basis, and also all the O&M manuals of the system. Then proper functional performance testing need to be executed for control system. So all these things are covered in actually Guideline 0. If that is properly implemented, it is all of them are commonsensical if you look at it. if properly implemented, documented, verified, and executed, you have a fully functional system that whatever is being captured, whatever is the design intent, that is properly executed and properly running. So if you are able to accomplish that, then quite a lot of problems that we face today in terms of maintenance, O&M, the lack of functionality can be removed. This is basically the requirement. So execution of ASHRAE guideline, at least to a reasonable extent, that will pave the way for proper commission.
Thank you, Mr. Zakaria. Mr. Imran Sheikh, there are a couple of questions for you. I'm going to summarize them in one. There is back and forth talk about ventilation versus air filtration, or ventilation and air filtration. What do you recommend from your point of view in terms of additional precautions that we need to do? Ventilation, air conditioning, air filtration, disinfection. Where do you place your emphasis from your standpoint?
Well, I would say it's a holistic approach. I mean, one cannot stay without the other. So that's why, like, you need to ensure that you have the correct ventilation into the space. And like Christopher mentioned, you need to have a good indoor air quality into the space so that the people don't get ill with that. That's the first step. Then we need to ensure that the proper filtration, the filters, MERV 7, MERV 8, or whichever is useful for this particular pandemic is in place. And it's also on the building side or the maintenance side, where you need to make the occupants comfortable, that buildings have sufficient measures in place, be it be the scanners, or be it be the disinfection in high contact spaces. So it's a cumulative holistic approach which needs to be looked at by the different parties, either be the designers, be the occupants, or be the developers, as well as the manufacturers on the different air conditioning equipments or filtration systems.
Thank you. Mr. Azmi, the next question for you, but feel free to delegate it. The question, just let me scroll down, sorry. Okay. There's a flow of questions coming in, so please bear with me. Duct cleaning. How effective is duct cleaning? And is this something that we plan ahead of time during the design stage, so that we have points of entry for duct cleaning instruments? Or is this something that can be considered, or is usually considered post? Razmi?
No, it can be, it should be planned, I mean, during the design phase and implementation phase, to make sure that the equipment can enter and do its duct, the required duct cleaning properly. And yeah, and this is one of the measures that can be done, preventive measures within the building. Other measures, as I said in the beginning, we need to work with what we have in the first place. And I would like to mention some examples. One of the most important things when we need really to look how these viruses spread within a space is the airflow distribution and the airflow pattern within a space. And we have an existing system, and we need to deal with it. So before retrofitting it. So one of the things that can be done, for example, is arranging or rearranging the furniture to make sure that people are sitting in locations within the space that are less risky compared to other locations. We need to make sure that this virus emitted from a source will not really reach another person within the space. So by rearranging, for example, the furnishing within the space is something that can be done and is easy to be done. When we talk about filters, for example, the first thing we need to make sure that these filters are not bypassed We need to make sure, because bypassing a filter will reduce its efficiency. If an efficiency is already 13, MERV 13, for example, it will become 8 or less by maybe 10 mm bypass within the filter. So these control of the humidity and temperature, we already have the equipment in place that controls the humidity and temperature. And there are many studies which suggest the best environment or less risky environment in terms of temperature, and what is the most risky environment. So, and it seems that within the range we are designing in buildings, which is 24 and 50% relative humidity, is quite within the range that we need really to make sure or to maintain. So we need to make sure that our equipment systems are really being controlled and operating to achieve these types of temperature and humidity. So these are the type of measures, and I wanted to take this opportunity actually to highlight the type of measures that we need to do by working with what we have, simply working with what we have.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Azmi. I'd like to take this fortunate opportunity to bring in on board Mr. Dominic McPollen, who is smiling and sparkling as we see. Could you please unmute Mr. McPollen? Yes, Dominic is a Chief Central Planning at the Ministry of Works in Bahrain. He is a chartered town planner with 2 degrees in city planning, specializing in infrastructure. Dominic, good morning and good to have you.
Good morning. I'm terribly sorry for being late, but it's ironic. The reason I'm late is because we've had a COVID outbreak in our office. We are an office, this is the first time I'm working from home. We have been office bound because we're the central planning. We deal with all infrastructure in Bahrain. We've had an outbreak of COVID in our office, and we are emergency disinfecting this morning and testing our staff. We had, it's ironic also that we had raised the issues with the Minister of Health and the Minister in charge of Sustainable Energy to make recommendations on changing our environment in the offices to take the best practice that we've found in our journey. Two things, good science and emerging science. The good science is fairly clear now. Humidity levels, very important, 40 to 60, 50 best. That's across the line now. I think that's fairly clear. The emerging science is something we're not clear on, and that is the issue of recirculating air. We have done some energy modeling in Bahrain to look at the additional costs that are going to be incurred if we're fresh air flushing our buildings, particularly in the mornings before occupation, and running our systems 24/7 with fresh air intakes. And we've looked at the increase in energy demands. What we're trying to do is to articulate this into our green building codes so that our energy auditing now will include, we hope, a public health audit on the environment based on good science and emerging science. The emerging science is the most difficult of all because it's very hard to take additional costs at this time. We're all organizations that are facing, whether you're in the private sector or in the public sector, facing financial restrictions. And it's very difficult when you come forward and say, well, we have to increase our energy costs here in order for public health benefit. And that's where we are at the moment. That's under discussion in Bahrain. We have opened these discussions with the key ministries, and we're hoping to make those adjustments to our green building codes. Basically, humidity level controls, critical. Circulation and ventilation, big issue. Fresh air flushing, big issue. Energy cost increase. We've done some modeling and have done some theoretical calculations on what it means to our offices. We're starting to experiment with some of our government offices. Unfortunately, probably my office was due to be experimented on, and we have a COVID outbreak in our office. It's very, very difficult to say what is the science on that spread. But thankfully, the spread was contained.
Thank you, Dominic. Earlier on, we've exchanged discussion or opinions between the panelists, and there was a great comment by several panelists, and they stated, without government involvement in terms of ensuring that the recommendations are the law, then it's just going to be recommendations. So it is there for entertainment and not really implementation. What do you think from your point of view that would take recommendations to be implemented?
It's very simple. That's why we started with the Green Building Code. The Green Building Code, we have energy targets. Those have to be adjusted. You have to balance now energy efficiency targets with public health issues. And our energy audits must also include a public health audit. It's as simple as that. And it has to be put into the Green Building Codes. Well, that's the vehicle in Bahrain, because we're moving to a consultancy. We're bringing in a consultant to do an operational consultancy on the adjustments required to make that balance between public health regulations and energy efficiency. It's all in the Green Code. And if the government says, okay, we have these targets for energy efficiency, however, we're going to relax them and we're going to overshoot on these targets for the reasons of virus control in these days of COVID and whatever's coming next. And that's the fulcrum of the seesaw, the balance between energy efficiency and public health. It has to be a government fulcrum. It has to be a government regulation. There's no other way.
Thank you, Dominic. I'd like to go to Mr. Ahmed Kiki, if you can hear me. And the question, can you hear me?
Yes, I can indeed.
Yeah, the question actually, comes from me. From the star rating, when we grant hotels star rating, how many of these stars can we, grant to air quality in the future?
That's a very difficult question. So you would be surprised. The star rating are very different between country to country, and in UAE, it's very different from emirate to an emirate. The star rating is concerned mainly of what types of facilities are provided within the hotel in terms of capital expenses and operational services that are provided to the customers in terms of operating supplies and equipment that can be provided and what type of services, response times, and so on. There is no air quality requests whatsoever in the star ratings, at least as far as I know. However, there is a lot of requests in terms of design, like Barjil, for example, which is the green coat of Ras Al Khaimah, of how can we achieve exactly what Dominic was talking about, energy targets, which now we are rethinking exactly the same thing. How can we achieve health requirements? Because, for example, when we tell, because we follow the government of Ras Al Khaimah, and we tell our hotel operators that you have these targets that you must achieve every year on genuine performance. And then we find out that our facilities management teams in the hotels, different operators, one of the first things that they do to save energy is switch off fresh air, negatively pressurizing the building, causing humid air to enter the building, and then we have mold everywhere and disaster in terms of air quality. So, and that's why I was saying that the photos that you showed in your presentation in the beginning is not an extreme. It's very, very common in UAE. because there is a misunderstanding of the facilities management teams of what is AC and what is fresh air and pressurization. There is when you tell people we're going to switch off, when facilities management people tell you we're going to switch off ACs to save energy, you need to make sure that they're not switching off fresh air and extraction, because you just damage the balance of the whole building. And this is what, like, we had one of our hotels closed down. We had to make sure that our chillers were running, our pumps were running, and our fresh air handling units and our extraction fans were running. We switched off all ACs. No one cares because the building is not occupied, but fresh air and extraction had to keep running. And this is where, and I might tap on a comment from a previous webinar. What qualifications do we have for people doing facilities management in hotels? Because
excellent point. Let me stop at this point, Mr. Ahmed, and move it to Engineer Shafiq. Engineer Shafiq.
Yes.
Or clip points, we can be inspired from Mr. Ahmed's points. Facility management is one issue, but the second issue is there are no marks for enhancing indoor air quality, and there is no penalty for not doing so. So why should anyone spend $1 on improving air quality?
Yes, I think the client has to be responsible for any shopping mall or hospital or any other facility that he is giving good indoor air quality for the occupants who are coming inside the building. And he has to bear their cost and provide, what is required by the codes and the standards. This is often overlooked. The only thing what they are giving is cold air, without coming back to the indoor air quality, or what is the quality of air we are breathing. And actually we are paying a high price because nobody has any law over here, and there is no statutory authority to implement what the recommendations are there. There can be many recommendations, but it has to be implemented, and statutory authorities have to come in and play a role.
Thank you. Can I bring Mr. Rafi?
Yeah, hi.
Yeah.
This is a question from Arthur Okupian.
Yes, I was about to bring it on. Go ahead.
Yeah, it's regarding the mass and the accumulation of the carbon dioxide contained when wearing the mask for 8 hours. The thing is that according to Vanderbilt University, Medical University, they've stated that basically the answer is question, prolonged use of the any face mask, including the N95 respirator, has not been shown to cause carbon dioxide toxicity or the lack of adequate oxygen in healthy people. For some persons with severe chronic lung disease, wearing a mask may make breathing more difficult, but not because of the CO2 retention. So recall there are health workers who routinely wear masks for prolonged periods as part of their usual care, such as when performing surgery, and adverse effects from this practice has not been reported. So cloth masks reduce a number of microorganisms that someone releases into the air, so the people wear the mask in an area, the fewer potential viral droplets go into the space, and the less risk that someone will be exposed to the virus. So I can share the link, and Arthur can actually view it, and so can anybody else. This is the answer to his question.
Also, Rafi, can you also comment, because there are some questions, you're probably seeing them, about the lifetime or how often you should change or maintain if it's reusable in terms of masks?
The filter as such that goes inside our mask can be up to 4 weeks on, like you go shopping, come back, that kind of a thing. If you're in the construction field, it depends on the usage. You're constantly sweating, I don't know what, it's so much dust, so it can last up to a week. So all you would have to do is take out that filter, put another one in, but then the mask itself, the cloth mask itself, with a high-grade cotton and how it is structured, You wash it every night or every 2 nights, depending how dirty it gets. And of course, if you come in contact and you feel someone sneezed in your direction or did something, it doesn't matter. You wash it every day, for that matter. You let it hang dry. The next day you take it with you and you're done. You know, it's just simple as that. So, yeah. Hi, Dominic. Dominic's got a question. Hey, Dominic, you're on mute.
Okay, I just want to say 2 things. Number one, the experience that we're going through this morning and this weekend, we had an employee with COVID in the office, and we had a number of employees who were in very close contact, sharing same desk. She was a GIS officer. There was a lot of plans being changed. She was wearing a mask, and the people in contact who were in less than social distancing distance from her were wearing masks. Thankfully, the 3 people who were in closest contact with her, theoretically, there's no way they should have been free from COVID this morning. They've just got their test results back and they're negative. They were sitting on the same desk. They were sharing the same screen. They were sharing the same keyboard. They were looking at the same screen because they're checking out infrastructure details. They were very, very close, almost touching a COVID-infected person over a full day, and both were wearing masks, and the 3 people who were in that close proximity are back this morning, just been told that their tests are negative. They're saved. The masks saved, and 2 of those guys are in their 60s. Those masks probably saved their lives. I want to put that on record. Number 2.
Excellent, Dominic.
Yeah. Number 2, I want to say something about the cost. I talked about good science. We have very clear science, and we have emerging science. And I would actually put the masks into good science right now after our experience this morning. So we have that category of good science. Let's not argue anymore. Let's move on with good science. Let's concentrate on the emerging science, which is about circulation of air and recirculation and fresh air mix and all of that. We need to take a chance and get something moving there, even though we don't have the answers. But I want to tell you something about the 3rd category of information. And this is the most important. We all are tuned into the world at the moment. We know there's a thing called fake news. Now, all that has to happen, my friends here today, is that fake news gets out, that ACs give you COVID, and your shopping malls are bankrupt. You can't sell apartments anymore. I know people moving out of apartments. Why are they moving out of apartments? Because they are insecure. They don't know who's in the lift. They don't know who's in the corridors, and they don't know what air they're breathing through their recycled air. The big hit, if we're not smart enough to deal with these problems up front and now, even though we don't have a full scientific formula, there is a major threat to our real estate industry in the type of apartments we build, in the type of shopping malls, in the type of public spaces, cinemas. Once fake news catches on, everything is empty, and every developer who doesn't want to pay the price for fresh air flushing, he will be bankrupt. Now, the smartest developers that I've spoken to are already implementing this in their buildings. Why? Because they want to put their hand up when fake news hits the ground. They want to put their hand up and say, hey guys, we knew about this and we've taken these actions. Look, we're doing this, we're doing that. We're doing all these things. And that's what's going to save, that's what's going to separate the 2, the bankrupt and the survivors in the next thing. The next wave is a recession. It's a recession, and it's going to articulate itself in the herd instinct, just like the stock exchange. It doesn't matter what the logic is or what the numbers are. The herd will decide what will happen. And if fake news, that 3rd category, gets out that there is a problem with ACs and air circulation, every developer is bankrupt that hasn't paid attention to these messages.
Thank you, Dominic. Thank you, Dominic. Last question goes to Engineer Hanan. Engineer Hanan, if you can just comment very briefly on on disinfection of sanitation and how does it affect air quality? Just very briefly.
Actually, we took all kinds of measure for disinfection. We use the tunnels, we use the hand disinfecting, and we use the fresh air, we use negative pressure just to decrease the spread of the disease, because we have COVID patient. So we want to protect our workers, our doctors. So we took all kind of precautions. It is just a precaution. Sometimes you don't know how much it is effective or no, but we have to take it. We have to consider it. Yani from before hand sanitation, it is available, but now we increase the number of, we put it everywhere and near each door, near each lift. Before it was in the corridor of the normal ward, near each patient of critical area. But now we put it in each and single corners for disinfecting. The type of cleaning we use also for the toilet and WC. We use nylon covering. And we use all types just to prevent the spread of disease.
Thank you, Engineer Hanan. At this point, I'd like to thank all our panelists, all our speakers. It's been a great exchange. We've covered wide array of topics between ventilation, air filtration, maintenance, the energy perspective, disinfection as a key element in the undergoing pandemic. I just want to say that according to experts, there are more outbreaks are expected. So we need to position ourselves and our Edgevac system not only to confront COVID-19, but all upcoming, God forbid, outbreaks. We should not really position our system to confront or capture one contaminant or one type. I just want to highlight again, we've got gases contaminants, bioaerosol, particulates of various types. They come in different concentration, size distribution, particle size, shape, density. So our systems need to be comprehensive and equipped. We need to be willing, capable, and interested to make a difference. I again say that, and I repeat it, I said it in the end of my presentation, I believe humanity has what it takes to confront COVID-19. I also believe the desire to get things right is there, and it's very well pronounced. I believe we just need to get the designers, the contractors, and the consultants, and the facility management or managers and owners to be on the same table and take a pledge to make a difference. We cannot, or we no longer can conduct ourselves and our facility and equipment the way we've done in the past decades. And I think this is an opportunity for us to move forward, revisit the key issues, and think, as Dominic said, our benevolence is disappearing, whether it's economies, shopping malls, it's in different aspects of our lives. Everything is becoming online. Schools are now online. Our lives have changed. So I think today has been a great opportunity. I've personally learned quite a bit from all of you. So I thank all of you. I want to take this opportunity now to introduce Mr. Surendra, who is the editor of Climate Control Middle East. Surendra, can you hear us?
Yes, I can.
Good morning.
Good morning to you. Good afternoon. Right. So good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you for participating and for attending this very important webinar titled Disinfection 360, as Iyad introduced. My name is Surendra Balakrishnan, and I'm the editorial director and co-founder of CPI Industry, which has produced this webinar. And it's indeed my pleasure to give this vote of thanks. First and foremost, our gratitude to Dr. Iyad Al-Attar, I believe we were in terrific hands with having Yad as a chair of this webinar. And as you could see from his presentation and the questions he asked. By way of further information sharing about him, Yad is a mechanical engineer, air filtration consultant, and an environmental enthusiast. His areas of expertise is a performance of absolute treated filters for HVAC and land-based gas turbine applications with special emphasis on the chemical and physical characterization of airborne particles. His current area of research focuses on air quality, aerosol monitoring, air filter performance for HVAC systems. So indeed, we were privileged to have him as the chairperson of this very important webinar. And I'm happy to say that he would be willing to take further questions. And we have your email addresses with us, those that have registered as delegates. So we are happy to have to foster communication between Dr. Yad and yourself if you have any further questions. Our thanks go to the wonderful plenary participants for their insights. I think they were very inspiring. And thanks to Kandasamy Anbaragan, the managing partner of ProLead Engineering, Azmi Abul Hoda, who's the managing director of Emergy UAE, Hanan Ahmed, head of engineering and maintenance services at Al Baraha Hospital, Ahmed Elkiki, director of technical services, RAC Hospitality Government of Ras Al Khaimah. He brought up the very important issue of properly qualified and specialized FM personnel responsible for the well-being of buildings. This is something that we discussed even during the last webinar, so thank you for bringing that up. Mohammed Shafiq Ur-Rahman, senior HVAC engineer, Dar Gulf Consult in Kuwait. Imran Sheikh, vice chair of SIPSI UAE. Mohammed Zakaria, who's a chief consultant, Suhaimi Design Protect Cooling in Saudi Arabia. And Dominic McPaulin, who's a chief Central Planning Office, Ministry of Works, Municipalities Affairs and Urban Planning in Bahrain. So he came in towards the end. Nevertheless, his contribution has been useful, so thank you to him as well. And he did bring up the importance of public health audit based on science, good science and emerging science. I think that's a very important sentence because we want to see the best of solutions rolled out in a structured manner, even while facing an emergency and a shortage of time. Before I conclude, it's my duty to thank our sponsors, our silver sponsor, Concept Arabia, for their face armor masks, our bronze sponsors, FTZ Global and Underwriters Laboratories UL, our strategic knowledge partners, Emergy, Dar Gulf Consult, and ProLead Engineering Consultants. Our strategic HVACR partner, www.careersbay.com. And also thanks go to the delegates who were wonderful. I believe they enlivened this webinar with several useful questions, which gave solidity to the discussions we have just been privileged to. For several years now, we as a magazine have spoken on an integrated approach to project development, be it in new construction or existing buildings for retrofitting purposes. At the time of this pandemic, this kind of integrated holistic approach that involves multi-stakeholder collaboration is profoundly important, as is Guideline 0, which Mr. Zakaria mentioned, and the importance of proper commissioning so that FM teams do not find surprises waiting for them when they set about working towards maintaining buildings for proper functionality, including indoor air quality. I would like to say that a detailed report of this webinar will appear in the September issue of Climate Control Middle East magazine and also in its associated online platforms, www.climatecontrolme.com and www.climatecontroljournal.com, which has got a universal audience. With that, my thanks once again to all of you, and do stay safe. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Surinder.